I don't think the upcoming races in this season will be kind to Liam Lawson. And let me explain to you why. There is one big reason, and the reason is the Red Bull curse. What is the Red Bull curse, you may ask? Nah, I'm joking. The Red Bull curse can be broken into two parts. First point, the first part of the Red Bull curse is that the car has a very narrow operating window. I think a lot of people know this. I think at this point, this is common knowledge. If you want to challenge for wins and championships in a Red Bull, the car has to be set up in that narrow operating window. Otherwise, you're going to lose performance. That's the first thing. And the reason why it is a part of the Red Bull curse is because typically in Formula One, the driver and the car meet in the middle. The car is set up in a certain way to suit the driver. You know, there are certain things that a driver likes about a car, which can be, added via the setup changes. And similarly, the driver also has to make some sacrifices in their driving style and their tendencies. They have to change their approach in how they drive the car around the circuit to meet in the middle. And because of that narrow operating window issue with the Red Bull cars, you kind of cannot meet in the middle. You cannot even think that it is possible. You have to unlearn your current driving style entirely and rise up to the occasion to literally the second coming of Jesus Christ, which is impossible. So that's the first Red Bull curse. The second Red Bull curse is that in that narrow operating window that we just talked about, the car is unstable. Liam Lawson himself has talked about it in the Pit Stop podcast. He talked about the car is fronty and, it has a lot of front grip and stuff like that. Alexander Albon, he went to some podcast and he was talking about how driving the Red Bull is like, having your mouse sensitivity to the highest. In layman's terms, the Red Bull car is too sensitive to throttle and steering inputs. Like that's basically is the problem with the instability of the Red Bull car in that narrow operating window. That's the second Red Bull curse. The car is very sensitive to throttle and steering inputs, meaning you have to be millimeter perfect. If you're squeezing the throttle pedal and you're off by half a millimeter or something like that, you're going to spin the car. If you are like driving the car around the track and you make half a millimeter mistake while turning the steering wheel, you may go outside the track, you may oversteer or understeer or something like that. Now Max Verstappen, being the second coming of Jesus Christ, he has like nanometer level of perfection. Like it's unfathomable for common folk like you and I to even comprehend the driving prowess that the Dutchman possesses. Like it's literally impossible how he drives that car. And by the virtue of the Red Bull curse, first you have to unlearn your current driving style to adapt to Red Bull. There's no meeting in the middle, as I explained. And number two, the car is fucking unstable. So when you have these two huge pressing problems and you have a bad start, I mean, the Australian GP was terrible in all aspects. There is not a lot of positives that Liam can take away from this. If he had at least brought the car home, even if he was dead last, at least he could say that, well, the conditions were tricky. The car is tricky to drive. At least I managed to bring the car home. He failed to do that. And I know a lot of people are going to say it like he was driving on slicks. Many people were driving on the slicks during the rain. Not everyone crashed. So I don't know. So every way the first race weekend could go wrong, it did go wrong for Liam Lawson. And his confidence has to be at all-time low. So the bigger question should be, who is going to replace the New Zealander mid-season? So based on what we have seen in the Australian GP, first option is we have Isaac Hadjar, who did qualify well. He qualified P11. And the second option, which is a better option, is Yuki Tsunoda. He qualified P5. He was competitive throughout the race. He was screwed over by the strategy, which is why he couldn't score any points. But I think he could have scored some nice points, like at least P6 or P7, at least. Because that's how strong his base was and that's how well he was driving. So obviously, I think for Helmut Marko, the logical option is Franco Colapinto. So we will see if Franco gets the nod from the Red Bull bosses to replace Liam Lawson mid-season and partner with Max Verstappen for the remainder of the year. We will see what happens. I think probably until Bahrain, we have to wait and see how Liam progresses. If he doesn't progress that much until Bahrain, if he's not challenging for the podium positions or at least the top 5 in Bahrain, then they will probably take him to the back of the garage, put a bullet in his head, and bury him in the desert. Franco Colapinto, you are next. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.